What's up, guys? Mixed by Jocelyn here, back with another episode of Mixed Opinions. I'm glad to have you back, and today we've got a brilliant guest for you. We've got Justin Brand on the podcast. What's going on, bro?
How you doing, buddy? Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you for coming on. This is good. A fellow content creator, engineer.
Yes, apparently.
Yeah, a brother in arms, as you say. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it's nice to connect with other content creators and people who are trying to do the same thing.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I mean, I think we initially got connected through
It's through arts.
Arts.
Yeah.
Arts. And do you live in the UK or do you live in Canada?
No, I'm in the UK. I'm in Norwich, so I'm
Right,
not far from you
right.
at all.
No, not at all.
So I met Arts at the tail end of 2022, which was when I kind of started toying with content, and yeah, me and him got connected and spent 2023 kind of growing together, if you like, going through everything. And yeah, and then you obviously went to Canada and I saw you with him, and I was like, what are you doing? Get your arm off him. But
That's my buddy.
Yeah, he then messaged me and he was like, you should connect with this guy, I think you should be friends, which is why I messaged you. And I was just like, Arts told us we should be friends.
Yeah, well, he's a great guy.
He's a cool dude.
I got a lot of love for him, and it was really cool because I mean, I hadn't really we'd spoken a bit online, but I hadn't really had that much of a conversation with him, and he saw that I was in Toronto, and he was like, "Bro, like, let's meet up," and he took us to this like super cool arcade nightclub place that his fiance manages.
Yeah.
And yeah, looked after me really well, man. He's a really cool guy. And then like suggested this contact as well. And
yeah, he's such a stalker.
Yeah.
Stalking your stories. Hang on a minute, I recognise that place.
Yeah. Well, he's dedicated, and I mean, he's really dedicated to
100%, yeah,
the craft, you know, because that was one of the reasons why I wanted to get you on was because, you know, this weird little niche audio content creation world that we've got ourselves in, like it's become its own weird little pocket, and we're creating our own community in a way.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
100%.
And I'm very interested to obviously explore that and make sure as well that it's not isolate, you know. Arts is doing the right thing because he's connecting everyone. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I feel like we're in danger because we spend all of our time just alone in the studio making videos or whatever. If it becoming a very isolate thing when it doesn't need to be like that at all. Like, you know, collaboration is key. So what?
Yeah, sorry.
No, go on.
No, I was going to say you're absolutely right. I mean, there's a lot of times where I say to people that, you know, whether you're a content creator, whether you're a mixing engineer, you know, whatever it is that you do when you're on your own, it's great. You know, I love what I do. I'm blessed to do what I do, but it is lonely a lot of the time because you're on your own. And what I found really nice is when you do connect with particularly other content creators, which I've connected more with the mixing engineers. I've got some good buddies that are mixing engineers and stuff, but obviously they're usually busy doing that. And the content creator kind of thing, I think when you connect with another content creator, even if it's just somebody that you can just say, I'm having a really crappy week, I'm having really bad imposter syndrome, you know, have you ever had that? Not a single one of them will go, no, I've never had that. They'll be like, I know exactly what you mean. Yeah, just got to ride it out. And, you know, you get the advice from them. And it's probably the most valuable thing is just having somebody that's at the end of an Instagram message or WhatsApp message, or there are other platforms that you can message on. Just having someone that you can bounce ideas off, bounce feelings and, you know, good times, bad times.
Yeah, no, I think that's really nice actually, because, you know, on the topic, like that's something that I've definitely struggled with. And, you know, I've been a mix engineer for 10 years, but I've only been really like diving into the content creation for the last maybe 2 years, like taking it like semi seriously. And it's something in the last year that's sort of come up, and I've highlighted about myself, and I'm like, oh yeah, actually, do you know what? I spend an immense amount of time on my own,
Yeah.
and like when I have like, and full hands up, like I do get like down bad like mental health moments, like where it definitely decreases and
Yeah, yeah,
whatever,
yeah.
and I think that's a massive part of it, so it is really important to connect, and even like trying to like expand past just the DM. Do you know what I mean? Like what me and Arts did, where we physically met up and had just a
Yeah,
really
yeah,
nice
yeah.
night. Do you know what I mean? We didn't do anything to do with music or whatever. It was just cool, chill, connection. And then the next time I go to Toronto or he comes over here, we'll do some more work or just
Absolutely.
hang out. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's cool, and it's just nice to sort of like because you do, a couple of weeks go by and you can feel totally alone in it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, oh, I'm the only and you can start to feel like, oh, am I the only person, in this boat, So,
It's a weird thing, and especially when you go right back to the kind of beginning and you sort of go, why am I doing this? Why am I creating content? And nobody's asking you to. It's something that you've
no.
chosen to do. So you're putting this pressure on yourself. It's not anybody else. It's a weird thing. Funnily enough, when people started following me and started watching my videos, which was the whole point of doing them, that was when I was like, now people are watching. Shit. Now there's this pressure
Yeah, I
and like,
have to do this right.
but like I say, it's me that's chosen to do it. No one else is. So when you have that pressure and when you're feeling bummed out and stuff, it's like, well, I don't have to be doing this. It's
No.
It's so strange. It's just a great big circle of emotions and good times, bad times, but it's fun.
That's a good question. What was the your initial reasoning for starting to make content?
Lots and lots of reasons. I think in a way, I mean, so I suppose to kind of walk you through like a little bit of evolution, I guess, like a little bit of kind of backstory and history. I got into writing music when I was like 14, producing music at like 17. I'm 44 now, by the way, so that'll be how long, however long that is
Yeah.
now. I built my studio in 2012, and managed to go full time with it around about sort of 2020. So I'd always kind of done it. I'd always been busy doing it. Anyway, so what I started to see probably about 2 years ago, maybe, was seeing all these content creators coming out, and I don't mean this in a kind of arrogant way, but like I would see new producers popping up that are doing content, and their content's great, and they're doing really well. They're building a nice community and stuff. And I just kind of looked at it and thought, I feel like I should be doing something like that because I've got all of this knowledge, and I feel like I want to pass that on. So that was kind of one hand. The second part was I get sent so much stuff remotely, and I think kind of what my point was going to be was obviously when we had the pandemic and everything, the world changed. People were no longer queuing at the door to come into the studio, so I had to start looking for more remote work where it was always people coming here. So I had to start picking up some stuff from maybe what people have recorded at different studios or recorded in their bedrooms or wherever. And what started to happen is I started to mix music for more people around the world in different countries and things. And I was no longer this local studio and this local engineer because I'm working with people over the other side of the world. So that was kind of the first thing with my Instagram, where I decided to change it from being my studio to being me personally. And it's like, I'm going to try and build something which is more personal than it is kind of business, if you like. It's going to be more.
And that's in a conscious way. So because you're so remote, it's so your remote customers feel like they have more of a connection with you and they understand you, maybe.
Yeah, that was a big part of it. But what then started to happen through working with people remotely is you figure out how people record their stuff. And
Right.
as you will know as well as I do, not everybody records it in the best way. You get sent some stuff which is just like, what am I supposed to do with this? You know, in the nicest way possible.
Right. I
So
see.
that was kind of the kickstart, really, which was like, right, I know exactly what it is that I want to do with social media, and I want to educate people. That was the big thing. It's like, if I can just get somebody to send me, like, I have this kind of running joke which is about vocals. You know, I've done reels about when the vocals have been recorded with a pineapple, and silly things like that. You know, the client requests professional vocals, but they've recorded it with a pineapple. The joke behind that is that you will always have people say, "Oh, I want to sound like, you know, I want my vocal to sound like Drake. I want my vocal to sound like whoever." But I've recorded it in the middle of a shopping center on the busiest afternoon in existence on my you know, iPhone
iPhone mic.
microphone or whatever. And obviously, we know that a majority of stuff starts right at the beginning, the source, you
Mm.
know. So I just thought, if I can just get one person to send me vocals that have been recorded really nicely, and I've educated that person on how to do it, then my work here is done. You know, it was kind of that thing.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, and then as time's gone on, it's just absolutely snowballed. Like, it's crazy. It's really good fun. Um, and
Yeah, because
yeah, it's brilliant.
your page has got brilliant engagement as well. Like it's, you know, you seem to have built like a good community there, and like your videos of when I, you know, came across your page, the thing that really stood out to me was the quality from, like, you know, from way back. Like they started off like like thought out. Do you see what I'm saying? So that's and it was like, oh, okay, because you know you can sort of see like progression. So if you go on like some of my earlier videos, they're like shocking. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
And I'm going through like all of these different phases of, like, you know, trying to be very comedic,
you're
trying to be
trying to
very
find
serious.
yourself. You're trying to discover
Yeah, yeah, and there's not a lot of consistency there,
yeah.
really. And like what I noticed was maybe I just needed to be more myself, and then that becomes easier to translate on a
But you
consistent
did it.
basis.
You did it, and this is the thing. So I have got, and this is a story I've told a few people. I've got YouTube videos which I made back in 2022 that
Mm.
nobody will ever see, and it was just fiddling about with camera angles. It was fiddling about with lighting. It was writing scripts. I bought a teleprompter that would fit on my camera so that I could read the script as it went up and everything like that. Like, I was really trying to do everything. I recorded an intro. I had, you know, it was all cool. It was very swish and very nice. But I couldn't get it right. And I kept trying and trying and
Mm.
trying. I must have shot the same video about 3 times. Um, and then in January, I think it was January the 2nd in 2023, I literally got my phone, I shot it, I turned it onto the front camera, and I held it about here, and I just talked into it. I looked dreadful. Like, I had a really bad hairstyle going on at the time. My beard was like down here. Like, I looked scruffy as hell. And I just talked about a free plugin. And we'll come back to this in a bit, because there's actually quite an important lesson and a
Mm.
great story from this very first reel that I shot. But the point was, like, I was trying to get everything perfect from the start, and I couldn't do it. So I just thought, you know, bollocks, I'll just do it. And that was how I did
Mm.
it. And then, you know, when you say about my videos looking polished and stuff, I mean, first of all, I appreciate the compliment. Um, the funny thing is, I've got friends and people who will say to me, you know, your content always looks so good, you always come across so sincerely and stuff like that. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, I think it looks dreadful. Like, I think I come across robotic. And then I will then say to them, but I think you come across really well. And they will say, but I feel really robotic. And
Yeah.
so it's that kind of self doubt that's in there. But yeah, what I was going to say.
I think everyone has that. I'm not gonna lie. I think everyone has that. It's like what we were saying before I started filming. Like, you know, always I like to film episodes in batch because it always takes me like an episode
Yeah.
just to like get into the flow of it. You know, the
Yeah.
first episode is always a little bit like everyone else, the crew or whatever says, yeah, it looks great. But like me, I'm like, oh no, I just know that like the intro was like, I was way too amped and it was forced
But
and,
that's a really good thing, because the same thing comes with music. You know, I'll sit here and I'll just constantly be editing and changing something, or re-recording a guitar solo because it was point 0.0001 of a millisecond, not quite, and I can hear it and no one else can. But no, what I was going to say is, the fact that you did it, and the fact that you've learnt along the way, it's the best way to do it, and it's the advice that I always give.
I mean, for me, in a weird way, I mean, I don't know. I don't like to go too deep into it because obviously some people just aren't really into stuff like this. But like, I sort of felt like, for me, I like a lot of Buddhist stuff. I'm not a Buddha or Buddhist or whatever you call it, but I'm quite into like their culture, and do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of their beliefs are quite. It just feels like a nice way to live your life,
Nice.
right? And they have like this. Their main goal is to obviously to do something that you love and do something that you're good at and combine the both and do it in service, right?
Okay.
Like that's like one of their main like mantras or whatever you call it. And I was like, okay, right, I love talking and chopping shop and making videos, and then I'm very good at engineering. Let me combine the two and give it to the world.
Yeah,
Do you
yeah,
see
yeah.
what I'm saying? And so like your necessity, you built it from wanting to be able to educate your clients,
Yeah.
to be able to do the right level of work. For me it was like, this is how I want to align my life. So it's like I want to, again, like you said, teach and give back,
Yeah.
and just build the story. And now it's sort of built up more than that, and it's like to the point where it's like I'm thinking about it not just from like the people that watch the show and that like the show, but also the guys that come on it. Because I realized that even at the very tip top of the engineering producing world, there's nowhere near as much exposure as I think should be there.
Yeah.
Because these guys are rock stars in their own right. If you speak to any top 10 successful artists, they will say the song isn't the song without the engineer.
Oh, 100%.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, so, for us, it's about really shedding light on all of that as well. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And my main goal now is to build a platform that allows everyone at any level to do that.
Nice.
If you see what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So that's the goal. But yeah, so I think I personally think it's really important. And again, it was another reason why I really wanted to have you on and talk to you, because you to me, and obviously now speaking to you, it's true, but you seem like you're sort of on the same wavelength as myself, and like on the same mindset of thinking when it comes to creating content and stuff like that. Because occasionally you do come across pages and it feels like a little bit sort of like they're just churning it out.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
For the sake of it, right? And it becomes more about the business than it does about like the actual education side of things. Basically, when people start being controversial.
No, I know what you're saying. It is, and I won't. Yeah, I know what you mean. I'll leave it there.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've come across videos where someone has said something about recording, for instance. I'll try and find this video and I'll send it to you because I think it will make your toes curl. But like, it was about like mic positioning and how it changes your vocals. But it was like they on purpose did it wrong.
Yeah.
Right. To make it controversial, right, and said it wrong and did the opposite thing. So I'm like, this is really bad information.
Yeah.
And you're gonna actually, because you've got such a big platform, those people are gonna go and then record their songs in a terrible way, thinking they're doing it right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then there's guys like me and you that are trying to genuinely teach people. Do you know what I mean?
I think a big thing for me was explaining why. That was just a little thing which I did, which I didn't feel like anybody else did. It's really easy to say, do this, do that, but if you're not saying why, then you're not really teaching, you're just showing.
No.
And I think that's a big
That's a
thing,
really good point, actually. Yeah,
because
I've not thought about that.
yeah, you need to know why you're doing something, um,
Yeah, and I mean that again shows sheds light on yourself because of the depth of understanding you have of the topic. Because it's easy to just copy a technique, right, and film a video on it,
yeah,
but to explain why, you have to have the understanding.
yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And I think that's probably what separates you
Yeah,
from
I think so.
some
One,
other creators.
a lot of the feedback that I got from a lot of people in the early days was, let's say, for example, a plugin. Like I'd talk about a plugin and what makes it so good and why it's so great. And by the end of the reel, people want that plugin.
Yeah,
And at no point in that video have I demoed it. I've
right.
just talked about what it does and why it's so good, and then people go, "Oh my god, that sounds really cool." And
Yeah, yeah.
and when I started demoing the product in the reel, I didn't really like doing that because I felt like it kind of it pulled away and slowed everything down. And
Well, yeah, because you physically have to stop the communication and
yeah,
demonstrate
I think
technique.
also there's if you want if you want to see a demo on a product, there's a billion and ways to watch that. Go to the website of the company that are selling it. Go to
Mm.
YouTube, watch something like that, which is why
Yeah.
I just prefer
Well,
to
in
talk
short
about
form
it.
content, it doesn't lean into it properly because most people are watching it on their phones.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's like, the sound
That's
quality
fun.
is not, yeah, the sound quality is not good. If you're trying to show someone like the different types of compression, listening to it out of their phone, they're probably not going to be able to hear the
I,
difference. Do you know
I
what I mean?
I had a product which I did. I won't name which one it was, but there was a company that I was working with, and we were trying to get something to sound a certain way, and they were like, "We really want to showcase how what it does and how good it is and everything like that." And it was great. It was fantastic. And in here, I could hear a very clear difference. It's like, this is with it off, this is with it on. Wow, that sounds great. More punch, everything like that. And then I was editing, because I do all my editing on my phone, and no difference. No difference whatsoever.
Yeah,
Not
you
a
can't hear
single
it.
bit. And it
Yeah.
was so frustrating because we were backwards and forwards, backwards and forwards. It's like, trust me, in the studio it sounds different. I can't help the fact that it's an iPhone, or a
Yeah, I mean, people get around that sometimes by saying like, wear headphones for this particular bit of content. Like they throw like the logo up or
yeah, yeah,
whatever,
yeah,
and it just shows people that like obviously there's another level of depth
yeah,
like added to it. But that is a really interesting point about and like the flaw of making audio content for a phone
yeah,
is like unless it's like an extreme creative technique, it's very hard to demonstrate
definitely.
when so for producers, maybe something a bit easier to get around, but for engineers like us, it can be a little bit more, you know, tricky because the things that are important are so much more subtle.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean?
yeah, 100%.
So yeah, that's interesting. Well, let's come off content for a little bit. Um, I'd love to know a little bit more about like how you sort of like started. You've got this nice brand new magnificent studio that you're sitting in now that you've just done up. But I'd love to know a little bit of like of your journey into
Yeah,
music and like how you got started.
yeah. So I was always into music as a kid, like even from like my earliest memories. I remember having a little stereo which I'd taped a microphone to and would record off the radio. Always listening to songs with tapes and stuff like that. That was kind of how I got into music, and this would have been like, God, like maybe like 6, 7 years old. Um, it's funny actually because I always joke that my first instrument that I learned to play was the recorder, but that's absolutely true. It was. I used to play recorder at school, and was, but was always into it. And although that part of my life wasn't wasn't hugely consciously musical. When I was 12 was when I wanted to learn to play guitar. So that was when I
Yeah.
started. I was 12 years old. And then going all the way through school, I mean, I didn't study. I didn't sit many exams because all I wanted to do at that age was just play my guitar. I had this vision that I would always, in fact, actually, I had this vision that I would be in a band, I would be famous, I would be touring, I would be signed to a record label, and music would be my life. So that was kind of where it all started.
Right.
Played in lots of bands. Played in a band that I always thought would be the one that would make it, and then when I was about 24, everything just stopped. Everything, band broke up, and it was just like, right, okay,
Life gets in the way, sort of thing.
lifestyle. It's just like, right, okay, it's probably time to start focusing on what's really important: career, money,
Mm.
finances, everything like that. So I did that, and then, but I would always still be doing music. I'd still be playing in bands. I'd have a laptop. So it was about 2006. I was 26 when I started transitioning over to Logic Pro from what originally had a Roland 8-track thing, which I used to record with.
Okay.
Yeah, most people won't even know what that is. But yeah, so 2006 was when I moved over into like Logic. I think it was like Logic 6 or Logic 7, which I was using initially. And obviously that just opened up so much more freedom of what you could actually do and achieve, because all of a sudden you've actually got a very professional piece of equipment right at your
Mm.
fingertips. Whereas before, if you needed to record, you would have to go to a recording studio, because that's just how the world worked back then. Um, so I did that, and then 2012 decided that I wanted to build a studio. So where I'm sat, this is my garage at the back of my house, and it's all converted. So there's 2 rooms. So my vocal booth is all through in the room behind me, and then this
Oh
is
wow.
obviously where I mix and stuff. And it's all been done, properly soundproofed with electrics and everything done into it. So yeah, so that was back in 2012. And so here's the thing, like, although I always wanted to be involved in music, I always thought that was in a band sense. And 2012 opened the studio up, never really as a business. It was always my playroom, and I recorded a band locally. People heard that recording. More people approached me, started recording other bands. Decided to open it up as a business, even though I was working full time. So at weekends, I'd be in here. Um, and it then kind of became a thing where it's like, okay, maybe I can have a career in music, but it's just not in the sense that I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
It's now moved into the recording side of things. Anyway, yeah. So 2020 was when I went full time with it. The job that I was in came to an end, and since 2020, I've been in here literally
Right.
nearly every day. And
What was you doing before music, if you don't mind me asking?
I worked in retail for 16 years. I worked in a state agency. I worked for a media company, but it was hard because nothing was ever the same. Like, it's I've never had a job that I've loved, and I love what I
Right.
do now, because obviously this is like my biggest passion. So it's a really, when you see all these inspirational quotes and they're like, find something that you can do, find something that you're good at, and make that the thing that you do. And I think once upon a time I would have looked at that and gone, yeah, well, that's easy for you to say. You're whoever.
A
Um,
bit cynical towards it, maybe.
yeah, because it's like when you see all these interviews with people and I had a dream and I turned this dream into a reality, and you just think, oh yeah, of course you did. But obviously they did. But it made me realize that, I think a change of mindset and realizing that actually, this is something which I could do, and I have done, in the same way that was like, maybe I could get into doing content, and that's worked really well. So, um, yeah, just yeah. So I think what the biggest change for me has been is, once upon a time I was a guitar player that knew how to do the recording side of things, and I think the biggest transition in recent years is that I'm now I consider myself to be a recording engineer, a mixing engineer, probably more of a mixing engineer, to be honest, more than anything, first. And I think
Mm.
guitar playing is now quite a long way, back down the line.
Where, where did you find yourself? Because it's always interesting. Because I sort of can pinpoint moments in my career where I transitioned through the engineering stages, right? Of being, record, I started off as a producer, just beat maker,
Nice.
and then started recording my friends and became a recording engineer. And then I can almost sort of know the moment where I sort of became a mix engineer.
Okay.
Would you when would you say that you sort of have, because I'm trying to basically get it across, because it's a question that I get a lot for on my in my DMs about, like, oh, how did you get into mixing? I want to be a mix engineer, and I always say you have to be a recording engineer first.
Do you know, a mixing engineer, I would probably go all the way back to when I was about 17. Like I literally would. Probably the very first time that I ever went in a studio, like every time I was ever in the studio with my band, I would be the one that would be sat next to the guy that was recording us. I would be the one that would be saying, can we just bring those guitars up a little bit? You know, can we just do something with that? And I've got an idea with this. And not in a...
Your ear was there already, sort
yeah,
of thing.
it was. And without even sort of realizing it, like, and I don't, none of it was, you know, I'm going to sit here and tell you what to do. It was more of a just that I'm really interested in this process, and I want to be involved in it, and you know, I want to do this together, but not even realizing that I was doing it. Completely subconsciously, just always being there. So, and I think that was probably, in fact, actually, I do remember the turning point. It was probably, I reckon, about 2007, 2008. I'd been to a recording studio. We'd recorded a song, and a piece of my guitar was out of tune, and it never got fixed. We would call, we would leave messages, and we're never able to get back into the studio to go and fix this tiny bit of guitar that was out of tune. And that, I think that was the point where I started thinking, right, I think now is time to start doing this myself. I've got enough knowledge of sat on my laptop with my headphones. And actually, that was a really funny thing. I thought that I would go from a laptop with headphones to a studio with better speakers and everything would just get better. And in fact, it went the other way, because it was almost like I had to learn, oh, now I've got fresh problems. And so, yeah.
Was you ever sort of like professionally trained?
No, completely self-taught, which I think is a good thing, and maybe something that gives me a little bit of insecurity sometimes, is that I am completely self-taught. Literally.
Yeah, you mentioned earlier about imposter syndrome and things like that. Is that something maybe you feel like leans into that, because you feel like, oh, I haven't been professionally trained?
Yeah. Sometimes I think, you know, you have this little niggle that you worry that if you talk about something and you're not necessarily right, then the comment section's going to come alive. Not that I worry too much about that. There's a great saying which I heard, which was, you'll never be criticized by anybody that is doing more than you, only by somebody that is doing less. And I
couldn't agree
more. I think once you program that into yourself, then it doesn't matter what anyone writes, because you just think, yeah, whatever, you know.
And I think the most important thing as well with stuff like that, as just going back on the sort of like self-trained element of things, is that we work in music.
Yeah.
Right. There's no right or wrong answer to anything. Right. So, you know, and a mix can be a million different things.
Yeah. Subjective, so, very subjective.
Totally. And even like to point at the tools, like a compressor can be a very different thing to a vocalist as it could be to us as an engineer, or what it means to them, and like how they would describe it and how they would use it. And it means no difference to if that's right or wrong.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and I think that's important. Like I did a college course, like a HND.
Nice.
But you know, that didn't stop me. I was already working in a music studio before I even finished that course, so I didn't, you know, necessarily need it. It was very good because, you know, I met some brilliant people. One of my mentors, Jay Ralph, but at the same time, like, especially when it came to mixing, you know, I learned all my mixing outside of college. Like 100%.
Yeah.
You know, recording maybe, you know, and just approach to music potentially, but mixing.
So what?
Yeah, it wasn't.
What I found to be a huge irony was that a few years back I was teaching students from the local college, so they would be sent from the local music college. It's actually a very big national music college. And I was having some of their students come here to sit with me, to shadow me, to see how I do things, for me to teach them things like that. And the reason why I found that, so ironic is because I'm completely self-taught, and now I'm
Yeah.
teaching people that are in education. But it is, I think, and to completely agree with what you're saying, a song can be mixed a million different ways. You give it to an infinite amount of engineers, you end up with an infinite amount of different mixes, because that's how that person thinks it will sound. Which is why I think it's always difficult when somebody says, it's like anything, you can have somebody say, I went to the cinema the other night and saw a film, it was dreadful, and you might go and watch it and it becomes your favorite movie. So
Totally.
but yeah, with certainly with mixing, I mean, I'm wearing a Van Halen t-shirt because Eddie Van Halen is literally like one of my heroes, and if this is clean out of the wash, it's going on. Which is why you'll see me wearing this one a lot. But he's a prime example. Like, there's a lot of people that don't know much about Eddie Van Halen, but if you actually look back at what he did, there are guitar techniques that are being used today that I'm not necessarily saying that he invented, but he was certainly one of the first people to come out with it. He's ripped guitars apart because he was trying to get a particular sound that have now become a part of guitars nowadays. Amplifiers didn't do what they used to do, so he would do it. And now, anyway, the point being is, had he have gone to a guitar teacher, the guitar teacher would have said, don't hold the guitar like that, don't do that, do it like this. But instead, he chose to do it his way. And I think what we also have to remember about recording techniques is, all of these recording techniques, the reason they're a technique and the reason why we're being taught how to do them is because once upon a time somebody stumbled across that and realized that that was something that worked really well. So that's kind of one hand.
Totally. Like, even compression, it was never initially used for half of the use forms that it is now. Like, it was for like radio stuff.
It
so
was
it
for
blow up the equipment and things, right?
It was for like royal announcements and things like that. And then they realized they can stick it in a studio and it sounds great on a drum kit.
Yeah, and one of the use forms initially was because they had no way of controlling the voltage or whatever, and how loud it was going to get sent through to everyone's systems, and they'd be breaking everyone's systems all the time. So they would use a compression so it would come out like an even stead across the as the signal was sent. Do you know what I mean? And obviously, you can kind of connect that to what we use for it now, but mostly it's for much more creative use forms. Do you know what I mean?
We're always finding, like, even now, you think about how long we've been producing and mixing and creating music, there's still people that are changing things by going, I've realized that if you do such and such with such and such, it does this. And then everyone goes, what?
I mean, well, look at clipping, for instance. Even when I was at school, digital distortion was like, no, don't touch it, never do it. Do you know what I mean? Now
it's turn it up.
If you're not clipping your output, you've not got a hit. Do you know what I mean? There's there's plugins designed to clip now. Do you know what I mean?
And this is the other thing with plugins. Plugins are a shortcut of a technique. But now they're in plugin form, and this is the difference. Which I've chats with my mate about this all the time. We've been doing music and producing music and whatever for a really long time, and I say to him that if the plugin world went down tomorrow and all of the plugins stopped working, I would still be able to create what it is that I'm looking to do, because I remember the world before all of these plugins existed. The plugins are just making it quicker and easier to do something. But the other thing that I just wanted to say as well, with being trained, and I'm not knocking anyone that goes and gets properly educated, purely for the fact I would love to be educated. I would love to spend, some of my mixing. I'd love a day in the studio with Butch Vig. Do you know what I mean? Like, that would just be an absolute dream. But what I also find as well is, when you do have this knowledge of, I must do this, I must boost a kick at this point, and I must boost it here, and I must do this, what then starts to happen is it's almost kind of like I remember we had a studio around here a while back, and it didn't matter what the genre was, every song came out sounding the same. So if it was a metal song, if it was a rock song, if it was a reggae song, they all came out sounding the same. Nothing was.
I have a similar situation here, to be fair, but I won't say the names, but yeah.
It's just try and mix something to how that needs to sound, rather than
listen to your client and be open-minded to it.
yeah.
There's loads of scenarios like that. I remember when I got my first Amapiano song sent to me to mix, and I'm like off the back end of just doing like a mad run of drill songs.
Nice.
So then I've sent this first mix, and they're like, mate, what is this? Why is the kick so loud? And I'm like, it's the kick, in it. You got to feel it, yeah, right. And because I'm in this drill mindset, right. And then luckily the client was like, I've got a long standing relationship with, and he's gone like, listen to this stuff, right. And I've listened to it, and I'm like, wow, the kick is not it's so subtle. It's like it's not it's more like just a very subtle feeling rather than a presence in the mix. It's all about the snare, and then they use this thing called a log drum that creates like the pace. Do you see what I'm saying?
Nice.
And I was like, wow. So then I've looked at my mix, and I'm going, yeah, I'm really sorry, this is terrible.
But isn't that nice though, when you do, I wouldn't say I have a particular genre that I do. I've done lots of different stuff. I'd say it's probably, I think only I had like an Afro beat project, which I did a while back. And I think that's probably the only one that I've struggled with a bit and thought, maybe I shouldn't do too much more of this stuff. But it is nice to dip your toes into other things and kind of learn. Funny enough, how I learned to use Logic Pro was by writing a dance song. Yeah, and it was that taught me how everything worked. And even though I don't write dance music, so yeah.
What genre would you say that you're like is your if you have a ballpark, like what is your ballpark?
I'd say it's kind of in the rock area.
Yeah.
I would really love to be able to produce something metal that's just massive. Like there's some stuff which I've been listening to recently where it's like, right, I need to dissect that and figure out how they're doing that, because that sounds great. But
do you know what I find when I come across things like that, and I'm like, I really want to do that genre, because it's very hard to get clients if you don't have a portfolio in that genre, right?
Yeah.
It's almost like you're stuck at day one again of trying to get clients, right? Because they're just like, you don't have that genre.
Yeah.
Like, I'll make it, I'll just make the song, and then most of the time I won't vocal it, and then mix it, and then I'm like, here's like an instrumental version or whatever. Do you know what I mean? So they can hear the tone. I think I've done that quite a few times.
You know that you have the ability, don't you? You've got the ability and the knowledge, and this is kind of how I feel. It's like, although I can't necessarily send you something, I am confident in my ability that I will be able to do what it is that you're looking to do. But like you just need that person. If you're not getting the people coming to you, then it's very difficult to pass it
maybe
on.
even sort of like if it's a genre that you want to work in, like just offer to do it for free, the first one or whatever it is, just to sort of like
just to have something,
because they're giving you a chance at the end of the day as well, because you don't know, it might not be the one for you. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But my way, and I think that's important, because again, it's a conversation I have with a bunch of my friends and whatever, and they're like, because I grew up loving grime, and that's sort of like how I got into the industry, right? So, and I recorded all of the OG grime guys, and I was very lucky to be in and involved in it. But as I've gotten older, I still have a lot of love for the genre, but I'm not so much sort of like in that ballpark anymore, and I want to maybe try different things. Especially the fact that grime doesn't really exist anymore, and it's mostly drill. And when I was younger, I had the connection with these kids. Do you know what I mean? Because we was similar age, whatever. But now, a 19-year-old drill guy comes in the studio, and I'm like, I ain't really got anything in common with you, man. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, just being
getting
real.
older sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've had times where I've been
So
in the studio and I'm like, I literally go, actually, no, I'm not going to say that because
yeah.
it might be a reference to a film or something, but I can already tell without saying it they are not going to have a clue what I'm talking about, so I'll just keep
Oh
that to
yeah.
myself.
Well, yeah, that's it. I mean, I'm at a weird age where, like, you know, yesterday, for instance, filming this project, one guy we get on, and they're talking about things that happened way before my era, right? And I'm like, I'm losing you
Yeah,
guys
yeah,
here. You
yeah,
know what I mean? And then the next guy is like, super young and super fresh, and he's then referencing things where I'm like, I just sort of know what you're talking about.
yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So, oh, party.
Happy birthday! But the weirdest thing is that it just happens. It's a really strange thing, and I don't want to get all deep and start talking about when you grow old and stuff because
You're
I
old.
yeah, it is a weird thing that, like, I mean, I'll give you a prime example. I've always been up to date with music. I've always been current. I've always liked new stuff. I've liked old stuff and what have you. Right now, I can guarantee you, with the exception of maybe someone like Taylor Swift or maybe Beyonce, that's like a big artist that I know, I could not name you a single song that's in the top 40 right now. I probably couldn't even name you a
No,
single
yeah.
artist. And that has
I'm not
just
gonna
happened.
lie. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I'm probably quite close to that, but I don't think that's out of necessarily being old. I think that's to do, and probably with yourself, to do with the fact that your your taste of music becomes more
Yeah.
refined, right? So, like, there might be a song every now and again that you like that goes in the top 10 or
Yeah.
whatever, and that's probably more to do with the fact that it's in the ballpark of music that you like,
Yeah.
right? So, like, I'm a big country fan, and
Nice.
right now there is a bunch of music that
Country's
is,
trendy.
yeah, because country is cool. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So, right, like,
Never thought that would happen in my lifetime.
not in the UK. I'm not gonna lie. Obviously, in America, it's always been like I think America has been like the second biggest genre, like selling genre next to hip hop for like the last 20 years. But like, um, because guys are like Morgan Wallen and now like Post Malone and Beyonce like adopting
Post Malone's
the
gone very country. I actually really like Post Malone. And
yeah.
he's really gone country. Like
Yeah, he has. Well,
literally
his
cowboy
whole
boots.
album that he released a couple of weeks ago is a full country album, even to the artwork being an F-150 like
Oh, nice.
rocked up on its nose. Do you know what I mean?
Minus the
So
flag.
yeah. So
What's
well, yeah.
what was I going to say? The what's the who's it by? It's uh, uh sorry, I'm just thinking about the fact that we're recording. You might have to cut some of this bit out, but
No, it's cool. It's a
here
podcast.
comes the 2 to the 3 to the 4.
Oh, Shabuzi.
Yeah. So I said to my mate, I said,
Do you know what's so funny? Yeah, as soon as you stumbled, I was like, he's thinking of Shabuzi.
he's now going to sing Shabuzi. Yeah, yeah. So just to let everyone know,
I don't know why.
my
I
name's
just knew.
Justin Brand. I'm a 44-year-old mixing engineer and producer, and I love a bit of Shabuzi. But this was the thing. I said to a mate of
I'm
mine,
probably pronouncing his name wrong, but yeah.
I said to a mate of mine, I really like this song, and he said, "Well,
Yeah, it's called Tipsy.
Tipsy." Yeah, he said,
yeah,
it's a cover of a 2002 song," and I was like, "What?" And then I went back and listened to that, and I remember when that came out, the first one, the first time. So, yeah, 20 years apart or whatever.
Yeah, well,
Didn't even recognize it because it's country now.
Yes, and obviously,
Or is it
like,
country? It's a merge of.
So that's it. He's got that twang, but it actually, if you listen to his previous projects, they're not actually country.
Yeah.
Like, it's like trap and
Yeah,
rap.
R&B-ish. Yeah.
Yeah. And now he's sort of leaning in. He's leaned into the country vibe, and the rest of his project is like, solid country kind of stuff.
Right.
But like, it's all. But again, it's like that Morgan Wallen type sound where it's country but with 808s.
Oh, nice.
so it's like big, and that's what's
Mad.
commercialized it again. Do you know what I mean? And
That's what
brought
I
it
love, though. There's
to
always
mainstream.
something new. I mean, I remember when trap came out, and I remember somebody saying to me, "Oh, there's this new type of music coming along called trap," and we were like,
Yeah,
"Trap? What?" You know?
yeah.
And I know that sounds really silly, but it is like there are always these things, and it's nice that it is. I don't know. I think that's what I just love about music. I
Well,
love people that
I mean,
change things up.
for us musos, it is. I mean, it's important. It's what how we spend an awful lot of our lives like looking over it. Like, I was having a really cool discussion with a producer called YJ yesterday, where he knew the moment where like drill sort of got adopted in the UK and became its own thing, and it was
Yeah,
like all to do with the fact that a producer took stopped using the hi hat for that classic drill sound, that
yeah,
like a triplet pattern kind of thing going on, and then and he instead took a rim shot and pitched it up
yeah.
and gave it this woody feeling, which just changed the whole sonic print of it, made it its own sort of thing. And then I think like the first song to do that was, I believe it was Body. I might be wrong. There'll be people in the comments going mad at me. And that was like, one of the number one tunes in the UK, like, and it was like one of the first drill songs to like actually go like top 10. Do you know what I mean? So
But if
it's
if that's not a lesson in itself of why you shouldn't do what you're supposed to do, and oh, you must always
exactly.
use a hi hat. Someone's gone, no, I'm going to use a rim shot.
That's exactly it. That's what YJ was saying yesterday. He's a very successful producer. Like, he's been, he produced Doja, which was like, it's arguably like one of the biggest hip hop tunes to come out of the UK in
Yeah,
like 10 years. Um, and he's like, I said, oh, about advice for kids coming into the industry, and he's like, if you're just doing the same thing as everything else, you're already
yeah, yeah, yeah.
lost. Like, you have to be unique, and you have to find a way of just thinking out of the box. Because he was like saying, "Oh yeah, everyone half times everything now. So like, you get a sample, you half time it."
Right.
And he was like, "I'm just gonna double time it and see what comes up." And now he's getting these crazy samples and
So
stuff like that that sound nuts.
I heard a song the other day that so if you put something into Melodyne and
Mm,
what you'll do I might have a client that's never seen Melodyne before, so I will say to them, oh, what I can do is I can pitch you, and I can put you up, and I can put you down, or just for a laugh I could put you all the way up here, and obviously it then ends up then singing really really high. And I found it,
Chipmunk.
yeah, yeah. And I heard this song the other day where the chorus was that the hook of the song was somebody singing that had then been pitched up in Melodyne or whatever, and that was the hook of the song. And I thought, how interesting that something which is that you wouldn't do has now become the hook of a song.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But I was going to say something else. Yeah, no, I do remember. So I was going to say, like, with you mentioned about people being unique and being themselves.
Mm.
The amount of people I've recorded over the years, I mean, for a long time, I was doing a lot of rap music in here. Oddly, I kind of got locally known as the person to go to if you were, a rapper or whatever. And everyone would,
Yeah, I'm that guy.
yeah, I think it's my gangster
Yeah,
vibes that
yeah.
I'm giving off here. But yeah, they would come in. It would be like, right, I want to be like, oh god, this is gonna be so embarrassing. So I'm now trying to think of some of the rap names. But anyway, so people would say, I'm like this person, and then what they would be trying to do is almost replicate that person in the booth,
Yeah,
and it's like that person already exists. It doesn't matter, you're trying to replicate somebody that already exists. They've already got that spot. You can go
yeah.
either side of it
And
maybe, but don't be trying to go to the same spot because you're just not
well, and the reason why they have that spot is because no one else sounded like them, right?
exactly.
So, that's what's so important, and that's why people liked them, because it was new and it was fresh. So the moment you try to recreate something, you're sort of like already fighting a losing battle,
Yeah,
in my head, especially if it's your goal to be successful, right?
yeah,
Like, some people, if you like making music and you like making music for that style, just like back in the day, cover bands and stuff like that, they just wanted to cover their own thing. It's fair
yeah.
enough. do your thing, right? But if you want to be like a unique artist in your own right, then you need to sort of find your own sound, and they are always the people that stand out as
Yeah.
well. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like 1,000%. And you might not like their music or whatever. So, like I worked with this guy right at the beginning of his career, this guy called Masterpiece, and straight away I heard his stuff and I was like, he's so different to everyone else that we're
Nice.
working with
Yeah.
right now. Like, it's crazy. And I knew straight away that he was like gonna do great
Yeah.
things.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I put a lot of time and effort into it. And then
Absolutely.
he liked me because he said everyone else, every time I go in the studio with someone else, they're always trying to push me towards a certain sound because they think, oh yeah, or maybe you could be a bit more like this, or or like Travis Scott, or like Post Malone, or whatever it is at the time that was popping. He was
Yeah.
like, no, I just wanted to do this, and I would encourage that creativeness. Like, in
That's
the end,
great.
he's like this young kind of black guy that looks like what you would call a roadman, do rag at the time, all this stuff, but he's like wanting to sing indie songs, and I thought it was cool as hell. Do you know what I mean?
Nice.
And now all props to him. Shout out to Masterpiece. Like, he's he came out at Glastonbury with The Streets.
Oh, nice.
And thumbs up. And
I love The
I don't know why I keep
Streets.
doing that. It's so weird. But yeah.
Like,
I think it's just me. But yeah, and he's doing really cool things, and all of his stuff is so unique. So he's done really, really well.
that's
And
great.
he
But
really did fight against it, because I remember even being in sessions at Warner Brothers with him when A&Rs came knocking, and they were trying to do the same thing. Like, they
really,
were like, oh yeah, have you tried doing this? Have you tried doing that? And it took him so long, but he kept focused and stayed true to himself. And eventually, he's now starting to like get the fruits of his labor.
but
So
that's the thing though. That's what he's gone in with. There is the mentality of it's a marathon, not a sprint. And that can be put into anything. That can be put into, social media. I've grown my social media as organically as I can, and because that's how you should do it, and respect to him for wanting to do what he wanted to do. But also, it's nice that you were, shown an interest in what he wanted and stuff. And I think that's a big thing. It's one of the things which I've had compliments of a lot, which is when I get involved in something, I know it sounds really silly, but I want it to sound as good as I can, and I want that project to be as good as I can and everything like that. And there's so many places out there that are just kind of like, right, well, that's your studio time up, pop money on the desk and
piss off.
Yeah. Everything is about relationships. Every single thing.
Yeah.
When I work with companies, when I do anything, it's about developing a relationship with that person, and then it's ongoing.
That's why the key thing is to do something that you enjoy. Back to like the original, how we originally started the conversation. Doing something you enjoy, because the guys that are there saying put the money on the desk and piss off, like they're not enjoying their job no more.
No,
like
exactly.
they're lost. They've the spark's gone. Right, so really that should be like the first red flag for the artist that's coming to that studio to say, I shouldn't come back here. Do you know what I mean? Like, obviously, yes, you have to run a business and things have to be done a certain way, XYZ, but there has to be a little bit of give and take. As I said, we're not working in this corporate job where everything's set and the rules are done and HR's on your door. Like, we're working in music. It's creation. It's art. It's passion. Do you know what I mean?
And you've also,
and it should be reflected.
Yeah, you've also got that person who has got to the point where this is no fun anymore. That's where they need to stop, and they need to go, right, why isn't it fun anymore? And what can I do to change that? It's everything that I go through, and even stuff that I'm going through right now, is what can I do to improve a certain situation in a certain area, and then that's the direction you start to take it. I think it's a sad day when you get to the point where you've reached, where you're just like, I don't, no more.
Yeah. Well, you've done it yourself. It's just, as we were saying last week, you've just reinvented and redone your studio, haven't you?
So the studio, it's just been a really long ongoing thing, mainly due to finances of just having the money to do it. But just wanting it to be the best that I can. I mean, I've not done much at the back of the room yet, but the front of the room has just all been acoustically treated, and everything's been rejigged and set up in a slightly different way just to it's version 3.0 basically.
Yeah.
Is what I'm calling it. You know, it's like the thing is with everything, you're going to outgrow it eventually. You know, like with my monitors that I'm mixing on at the moment, I've got KRK VXT8s. You know, people take the piss out of KRK all the time, but I've always loved these monitors. 12 years in, I'm starting to wonder whether their days are possibly limited. But there was a really good a good.
I think my speakers are like 10 years old.
Yeah, this the thing. There's nothing wrong with them, and it's
they sound good. They translate. So like,
I think it's more of a me thing than it is anything else. But I heard.
Oh well, I've got that because there's been a pair of PMCs sitting in a cart on a website somewhere for like the last few months, and I keep tittering with the purchase button of buying some PMCs. Nice. But you know, I will do probably.
So I heard somebody say that being the weakest link in the studio, that we should be the weakest link, and I don't feel like I am. And that's one of the things where I've wanted to change things. I want to become the weakest link in my studio. I
see what you're saying. Yeah.
Because if my mixing ability is here, but my setup because of my room acoustics, which have always been a problem in here, you know, if I start finding more accuracy
until now.
Yeah. So this has basically been the plan. Like I've gone down. And a shout out to Ed Thorne, actually. Check out his stuff on YouTube. He's fantastic. Great presenter. Some fantastic equipment that he reviews and stuff.
I think I know Ed. I think I've had he's been on the show.
So nice. I'll have to see if I can find that. But it's his fault.
Yeah.
So yeah, he sent me down. He said it was a rabbit hole, and he's absolutely sent me down this rabbit hole, but for the better, which is really trying to get my room to sound good. And even with what I've done so far, I can hear differences in here. So it's been money well spent and work well done.
Apologies, I got it wrong. It's Ed Stoke.
Right.
I got messed up. But it sounds like just the sort of thing that he would do as well, to be fair.
Yeah.
So
just trying to get it the best I can.
But you'll have to send me a link to his page, and I'll have a chat with him as well.
I will do. Yeah, he's a good guy. Good guy, Ed.
Great. Well, we got a little bit. We're running over now a little bit, but it's fine. I want to ask a couple more questions.
Yeah, no worries. Sorry.
No, mate. No, man. It's what we're here to do. It's a podcast at the end of the day. We're here to chat, you know.
Yeah.
And people want to hear it. So, but you know, just to get like the standard questions out, as you probably know they're coming. But your top 3 plugins at the moment.
Top 3 plugins. Wow. Yeah. Ooh, I'm gonna upset some children here. It's like, what's your favorite child? Do you know what?
Forget about all of the companies that you do videos for.
Hang on a minute. Who am I working with at the moment?
Sorry, guys.
Just a shout out to okay. So first one that comes to mind, Bus Processor by Softube. I absolutely love it. I've loved it since the day that it came out. So that's always been my go-to kind of bus compressor. Big fan of that. Suv 2, obviously, for obvious reasons.
That's in mine.
It's just one of the best plugins ever, isn't it?
Go.
I don't know about number 3. I don't think I could. Isn't it weird? And it's strange that there isn't a third one that immediately springs to mind, whereas the other 2 were like that. So let's leave it at 2.
Okay. Well, thank you for that.
I'll message you when I think of a third. Oh, actually, it's this one. Yeah.
Yeah. And another question I like to ask is, if your studio, touch wood, burnt down tomorrow and you could only save one piece of equipment, what would it be? And it can't be your computer either.
Yeah, that's a rank question. Do you know, I think it would be one of my guitars.
Yeah.
I
thought you were going to say guitar.
Yeah. So I met my wife when I was buying a guitar.
Oh wow.
My guitar, I have a guitar. It's called Amy, which is my wife's name, which is probably just as well that's her name, because if not, that'd be a bit weird. But yeah, I was in a music shop. I was playing a guitar. She came in. I kind of knew her. She said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm just playing this guitar. I'm thinking about buying it." She said, "You should absolutely buy it." I bought it. I messaged her later that night and I said, "You owe me this much money for half the guitar that I bought." Smooth. And we've been together nearly 10 years now.
Wow.
So that would have to be the guitar that I would save. The problem is I've got a 1979 Gibson Les Paul Custom, which is my birth year guitar. It's the year that I was born. I have my boutique Splawn amps here, which are so rare in the UK.
Yeah.
That would be hard, but that would have to be the one, because how would that conversation go? Which one did you save?
Yeah, no,
Not the
it.
one that we met with, so it would have to be that one.
Yeah. Well, that's nice though. That's nice. That's nice. I don't know what I would choose, to be honest with you, but I keep my studio sort of very. There's not a lot of. I don't know. Probably my plaque, and that'd be it. No
I saw
equipment.
that. Congratulations, man. That's amazing.
Yeah. Oh, thank you.
I've got
cheers.
a hook up here that one day I hope to hang something on. I say to people all the time.
It will come.
I say to people all the time, all I want you to do is get me a little disc of some sort that I can hang up on that hook.
Yeah.
So
it's quite crazy, really.
You used to have face masks on. So when people turned up, and I could have took it down, but I've left it there, and it's gone from being a face mask.
I see. Right, when you're as in,
yeah. You got a face mask? No, pop this on.
It is quite weird because it seems to all happen at once, because every time I go on my, like Muso, there's like another one that's like certified. Do you know what I mean? But so yeah, it's been quite a crazy roller coaster. But yeah, again, once it happens, it's like a snowball effect. I guess.
Yeah, nice.
But yeah, I was gonna say, like, because you're so passionate about guitars, I used to actually work on Denmark Street.
Nice.
So yeah, that was quite the home of, like, guitar shops. Basically.
There's a shop down there recently. They had the Eddie Van Halen Frankenstrat, which was the guitar that he built himself and butchered, and it's one of the most famous and iconic guitars of all time. Fender ran a custom shop series of this guitar. It was limited to a certain amount of pieces, and it was so detailed and such a replica that when they gave it to Eddie Van Halen, he has a guitar that down the back of the neck says, "This is the real one."
Right.
Because there were so many of these, and it was such an accurate replica of it. And Denmark Street Guitars recently put one up, and it was 35 grand. And I did actually put on my story, if anyone's got 35 grand and could pick this up for me down Denmark Street. So yeah, that's a cool place to be working down there.
Yeah, I think it's a bass shop now.
Right, okay.
I used to, for like,
that's not a real guitar.
Yeah, well, but like for the first,
it is. I'm joking.
For the first 5 years of my career, I managed a studio there, and they hated us as well because we would just do grime and hip hop, and like obviously this is like Tin Pan Alley's like classic, and the shop that we had as well, it was like where the Sex Pistols stayed and recorded and all this stuff, and they're like, you guys don't know the heritage and all this.
But this is the thing, and I mean, you'll know as well as I do. Like, I would rather record a band any day of the week than try and write, for example, a dubstep track. Now, I'm a massive fan of dubstep music, and I listen to some of the production in that, and it's just like, my God, like, how have you done that? But it is, it was for a long time the mentality of, it's just someone with a Casio keyboard making loads of noises, but it's an art. It's an absolute art.
Yeah, it's true. I'm talking of dubstep, hopefully going to have one of the Godfathers on soon, N-Type, which would be really cool. And have a chat with him. And trying my best to reach out and twist Scream's arm onto coming on and having a chat as well.
That'd be amazing.
He's like, he's very difficult man to lock down.
Yeah.
But yeah. Though, one last question before we wrap up.
Yeah.
and I think this would be a good question. I mean, we touched on it a bit already, but like, what advice would you give to anyone, you know, trying to get into the industry? And normally I say young people, but you are a proof that you can do it later on in your life as
Cheers,
well,
mate.
to be fair. So, well,
you
but
are
it's a
to
truth.
our older viewers. No.
No, I mean, because it's no, but it's refreshing. That's what I'm saying.
Do you know
like,
what my advice, honestly, and it's going to sound really silly and really simple, and I'm going to be one of these like what I was saying earlier on when someone says I had a dream and I turned my dream into a reality. It's as simple as you've just got to do it. You've got to do it. That's you've just got to take that first step to whatever it is you want to do. If you want to get into shooting content, just do it. You'll get better as you go on. If you want to start recording, if you want to start mixing music, then you need to do it. There's so many ways to do it. There's so many platforms that you can go on and freelance and reach out to people, and however you want to do it. One of the big things that I did when I first opened my studio was I just opened it up and I did half price rates. So it's like, right, I think this is what I want to charge, which wasn't a lot at the time, and I was doing half that because I just wanted to get people in the door and I wanted to get some recordings under my belt. And the best advice that I can give to somebody is do it and make sure you make an absolute shit ton of mistakes along the way, because that's the only way that you're going to learn how to do anything. And this goes back to what I was saying of why you need to, it's really silly. And you have this thing where they say, fail, but fail forwards and things like that. And we can get as, big into that and soppy with inspirational, motivational quotes and things like that. But it is the easiest way to learn how to do anything is to learn what you've done wrong and then take it from there and learn how to do it. Not properly,
amazing.
But just change it. So just do it, Get into it, do it.
Brilliant advice. Well, Justin, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
And we will put all of the links of your relevant pages and your studio. And is there like a link that people can go to if they want to book you?
Just find me on Instagram, Justin Brand NR6. That's NRSIX. Just find me on Instagram, follow me, and
well, we'll have it all links below as well.
Appreciate that.
And thank you so much for coming on, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, good chat.
And thank you guys for watching and listening, or however you're consuming this. And if you have enjoyed it, please make sure you give it a like and subscribe. And I will catch you guys in the next one.